I can't pronounce it. In interioricity, okay, and also the subjectivity, and that really means to me that we have interior built in to our being, various assumptions about ourselves and about reality. Uh, for example, I was taught from grade school on to value our democracy. That democracy is a great thing, and the founding fathers, Washington, Jefferson, Hamilton, were to be revered as leaders. Um, and the thing is, of we become formed with these ideas about reality, and that influences our ability to deal with people that may not have those subjective ideas, experiences, and so on. And that certainly, well, some politicians uh, create a separate world, and those that are in that separate world are difficult to communicate with. Uh, and of course, obviously, that relates to, you can tell what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about Trump, which I do not like. Uh, and so, anyone want to follow up on that sort of idea, the subjectivity?
Yes.
I really liked his example of a cup, that each of us will bring our own history, perspective, and knowledge to a cup. Now, Leslie, I saw you with a cup. And if you say a cup, do you think, is this a cup? Is a cup, what is your perspective? What is your image with a cup? Is it something with water, or is it something that's glass? Is it a mug? Is, there's that is, I think, one of the points that he was saying about language, that does it really, what I'm trying to say, hey, bring a cup of coffee. That could be in so many different ways. And how do we really get over all of these preconceived, which we all have, ideas to be able to express what we as an individual are really feeling? I thought that was his, one of the points I got out of how hard it is to talk, especially if we're talking about God's love and a relationship with God. Where is each of our perspectives with that?
Yeah, that's a great point, Steve. The thing I was thinking about, I think of that as implicit bias. And step one is knowing that we have it. And I think sin is critical because we forget in the moment, in the heat of the moment, that we have implicit bias, and that we know that we're misinterpreting what we're hearing, or we're not conveying it in the way that the other person will understand it. And I never thought about how embedded sin is in that, but our pride and our belief that we are always right just propagates that implicit bias, and it makes it so hard for us to overcome it. And the cup is a fantastic metaphor as well, because like my cups are always based on places we've traveled to. So when I see a cup, I'm always happy and having those great memories of places I've been. But for other people, as you say, could be a completely different concept. It's such a great metaphor. I agree with you.
I think we hear language and words according to our upbringing and what we heard when we were children through to now. And so we hear it differently. We may hear the word cup differently than you mean to say it. And I think that happens in the translation of what you're trying to say or what you're trying to communicate all the time. Because words mean things according to the way we have used them and the way we have understood them through our lives. And it could be mean some cup here could be something different for everyone. And it's difficult to know when you think you have clearly stated something and the other person has misinterpreted what you said. And I think that happens all the time.
It's when I was in college, when I did philosophy, the professor van der Kerker is a Jesuit, used exactly the same language, and he started his philosophy directly with Augustine and then moved to Hegel, the German philosopher. And he gave similar examples, and his example was a door. Is a door designed to be open or closed? Is a door designed to keep things out or to invite things in? And so he would analyze how the word door can mean so many different things in so many perspectives, from Augustine down to the rational philosophers of the 18th century. And so if I would talk to Floyd and say, read some work of Professor van der Kerker, because you're spot on. This is a crucial thing.
I think of the example to me of communicating with someone. I would start with a baby. When we use words to talk with a baby, they have no words. So there's their interpretation, and as a small child, depending on the language, is totally foreign to them. And it's the same thing if someone speaks a different language than we do. They may be a lot more educated and have a broader understanding of language than you do, but if you can't communicate because of a different language, or you're misinterpreting because you think you know what they're saying, it becomes really difficult.
I'm
I think
so
the language
struck.
is not easy, even if we're all speaking the same language. It's not easy. When someone is talking to you, you're looking at them, you're looking at their faces, you're interpreting what they're saying through all kinds of things, not just words.
I'm so struck by that sin keeps you from seeing yourself. It keeps you from seeing other people. That it can blind you. And that's not just actions, it's ideas. Like you all said, preconceived notions. It keeps us from seeing things as they truly are.
What should we do with our preconceived notions? Should we work to change them? I don't know.
I think the hardest step is accepting that they exist.
Yeah, okay.
That you have, I think a lot of people are still stuck on that. A lot of, I mean, even ourselves, do we recognize all of those? To be able to see that we have them in the first place.
But I think part of Dr. Floyd's message is that being Christian should be able to aid us in this way. So what do folks think about that message, that aspect of what he shared?
I didn't hear him say aid us. I heard him say that it's the only way. I don't remember that statement, and it really grated with me because it's so different than Celtic spirituality, which we've spent years listening to here at St. Tim's, where you see God through nature direct and the thin places, and that it isn't, certainly Christ is an important way that we see God, but it's not, even for Christians, the only way from how I've been schooled and my experience. So I can see how I come to that so quickly at the end.
It seems like even if God's supposed to be our common ground, even with that, we all have been brought up perhaps with different interpretations of God and how he works and what stories mean. I mean, even that is not a common ground all the time.
Just imagine that a lot of our belief is based on events that happen in Aramaic, we're told about in Greek, translated into a degraded version of Latin, and then translated into an English that we no longer speak. And we talk about communication. So try and understand what's going on is a multidimensional. It's not easy. And you always put something of yourself in whatever interpretation you give.
Well, trying to understand what's going on is not easy if you really want to work at it. I sit here in my relatively, well, clearly my comfortable home and read newspapers. Okay, so the Post-Dispatch is liberal oriented, and the Wall Street Journal is somewhat conservative oriented. And I think if I compare the two, I think I'm getting truth. Now, whether that really is truth is something else again. But there are various people that get their information from various sources, which are oriented in different ways. I do not have a steady conservative oriented source. Maybe if I worked at it, I could find one. I suppose I could. I don't really want to, because that's not the way I think. You know, determining truth about the political situation, about the status of the St. Louis metro area, has been accused of having too much crime and so on, or more crime than other comparable areas. It's hard to determine truth and really be sure that you've got the right information. But then you get almost to the point of saying, what is truth? It's complicated.
Well, I think not only is it complicated, it's different for different people.
True. I'll give you an example. In a sense, it's a ridiculous example, but I regard Thomas Jefferson, although he was human certainly, and he wasn't perfect, as a founding father to be revered. And I had a conversation with my daughter, who accused him of being a rapist, and based upon his relationship with one of his female slaves, which inspired me to rationalize away that relationship, acknowledging the relationship but rationalizing its legitimacy. Of course, I come to the discussion remembering that he wrote much of the Declaration of Independence and was instrumental in bringing Missouri and other parts of the territory into the American government system. So I was shocked by my daughter's affirmation that he was a rapist, because you can't admire a rapist, for Pete's sake. So it kind of depends upon your orientation. My orientation is to defend him. Maybe others would not. I don't know. Maybe others don't really care about the founding fathers. I don't know. What do you all think? Anybody want to comment on that?
Many slave holders were rapists. They didn't even see that as raping because they thought their slaves were their property and they could do whatever they wanted to.
Well,
And that's what they did. So when you talk about raping, first you have to consider that this is a person and not some kind of animal. And then you consider their being and your being. So that was not on equal, they were not on equal grounds there.
certainly not. That's right.
So could it be that both things are true? That Jefferson did some amazing, wonderful things to help create our democracy, but he also had those other traits. And that's often true in many things we connect with in the world, that like you're seemingly saying that you can't put it together with how great a man he was if he did those things. So you just leave those out, or you don't believe them, but it's just a question. We tend to want to make it like the ideal that we hold, but yet, many politicians in our history have had multiple conflicting traits. That's all I can think of right now.
We can't think of long ago and what was going on then the way we want to put it into now and what we do now. And you can't think of that at that time. That was perfectly legal. Everybody was doing that.
We're talking about
Yeah.
we're talking about famous people here, though, and isn't it the reality that that's each of us that has good and evil in us, and shouldn't it help us to communicate and to know that someone else isn't perfect, but it doesn't take away from the good things that they do. It's being human. I mean, that's Jesus came into the world so God could be here with us as a human, and as humans, not on the grand scale of Thomas Jefferson, but each of us does good things and bad things. And isn't that sin? I don't know. We could talk about this for a long time.
Well, I think of the language that children and teens use today would have been absolutely forbidden when we were younger. And we'd be absolutely looked down upon for using that foul language. Now you can listen to the evening news and hear all kinds of language, foul language, because it's becoming acceptable.
No.
It's modeled for the children now. That's just the change, like Jen was talking about. The world changes.
All of this conversation is so relevant in my own life right now. And in part, it has to do with the political year we just completed, where in my family, we have very opposing views of things, and they are like salads, that each person's truth, so to speak, is a salad. And this has helped a lot to hear about how our egos are involved. And gosh, what was the other word? they use, interiority, our sense of self, that it's almost like we're holding that sacred. This belief we each have is held sacred, and we'll hold so tight to it that it prevents us from finding some common ground. So my way of handling this, because it's my children, 2 of them, I just don't talk about it with them. You know, we just avoid that topic. And it's also about other aspects of life that we hold different views on. So that's, you know, I just feel a longing to resolve this, and just listening today and hearing that what he said about it's not what we can do, but God entering in and changing us. And that seems like it's prayer. So it's very valuable for me to be sitting in and listening to what he said and all of you say. I appreciate you.
Well, I could not have wrapped up this session better if I had tried. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your conclusions off of this. That was excellent. We do have to wrap up, excuse me, for the service. Just want to let you know we are not having adult forum for the next 2 Sundays because of the holidays. So we will resume again, I think it's the 10th of January, but I'll send an email out with the notification and things like that. Thank you for all of you for being with us today and through these sessions. I appreciate all the thoughts and ideas and reactions and everything else. So Gary, thank you very much for coordinating this forum series. Really appreciate it. And I wish everyone a happy finishing of the Advent and then into the Christmas season. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.
Thank you, Gary. This was a great series.
Thank you. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Wow.